All right, I see it. So, good. I was going to say good afternoon, good evening, good evening. We are officially calling the meeting to order. The Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage. Just give me a minute. I just need to pull up on my end the agenda. Unless Linda, can you share your screen?
Okay, Theo, can you do that? I'm trying to get onto the Facebook Live for a minute. Okay.
I think I got it.
Linda, you have to make me a presenter so I can share my screen if you need me.
Chair Hughes has it already, I think.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. So if I can have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda, but there is actually a change that I need to make. So one, we need to add roll call. So that needs to happen before we adopt the meeting agenda. Well, let me flip that. We need to adopt the meeting agenda after we add roll call. And then the other piece that we want to change is where it says new business and staff updates, that actually is all going to be lumped into the executive director's report. So that is actually not a called out item. So if I can have now, if I could have an approval of those two additions and changes for someone to approve the meeting agenda.
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. I think Hollis got you before before Tawana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. If I can have either Linda or Theo, can you all do roll call, please?
I'm sure I can do that.
Perfect.
Chair Hughes,
Present.
Vice Chair Doe,
Present.
Secretary Mullins,
Present.
Council Member Crawford, Council Member Nandi, Council Member Winston,
Present.
Quinton.
Council Member Dukes,
Present.
Council Member Busa, Council Member Representative Thompson, and then we have two Council Member Daniels, who is, I believe, excused,
Yep.
and Council Member Bonds, who is
Perfect.
excused as well.
Thank you. The only consent agenda item that we have is the approval of the minutes. I did not see any additions or corrections unless others saw any additions or corrections that need to be made. And if none, if I can have a motion to approve our consent agenda, which is literally just the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
There was before the motion, just a very minor thing I saw here under community engagement. I think there's a line that talks about hearing from the legislators. Constitute, I believe it's supposed to be constituent. So just a minor
So
correction.
the
I
spelling.
believe, yeah, it should.
Okay.
It says constitutes, but just constituents should be. I think
Okay.
that's what it meant.
So hearing that, if we can have a motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
I move to approve the minutes with the correction.
Thank you, Andre. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Hollis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. We are off to the financial report. I'm gonna turn over to the CMAH staff for that.
Okay. Please hold for just a second as I pull it up. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. The council has around $28,000. If you look under the unobligated column, you'll see that under unobligated, there's around $28,000 left to spend, which is about $20,000 less than last month. So we are clearing contracts and making purchases as needed for the office. The goal, it really is to get down to the 10% that we would like to be able to return back to the state, bearing us having any additional expenses. Also, just to keep in mind that it's at 28,000. However, we will have additional funds that will go into the unobligated funds as we close out purchase orders that might have had a couple thousand here or whatever remaining in it. So that number will flex during the course of the next couple of months. We will be closing out such areas in as the council meeting, like food for council meetings, mileage reimbursement, staff rental cars, and those types of things that we would have actually expended during the course of the year if we were actually having our meetings in person. So that's kind of it for the financial report. It's looking good. We have been meeting with Tracy in SMART just to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, and I'm comfortable that we are. So if there are any questions on the financial report, I will entertain them at this time.
I don't have any. I don't know if others have any
Quick question.
questions.
Yeah, I noticed that there is that $10,000 grant that it's restricted. Is that part of the 28,000?
No, it is not. And just so that you all can see what he's referring to, he is referring to the oral history grant money that came in from the Minnesota Historical Society. So with that money, we are able to continue the work and continue to use that money in the next biennium. So that money is available to us until December 31st.
Okay.
And it will be used because 10,000 of it is going to the individual that's doing the interviewing, and then the rest of it goes to the transcriptionist company.
And then I know, and Linda will speak to this a little bit more, but I know towards the end, we will have to give an approval of a contract that's going to be coming forth. That'll be roughly about $6,000, to expend down and, to do some contract work with NECA Creative, a couple of print documents. So I just want to kind of give you all a heads up on that. And then there's a couple of other things that we're looking at doing. So like she said, the dollars will be expended down. But again, I want to reiterate to remember that we won't see it until probably July or even August, because we meet the second Tuesday of the month, and they have until like mid-July, I think, to close out the previous fiscal year. So we won't see that, what the final numbers will be until August. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then also you all, if you want to move Jude as an attendee, so you all need to move him into a panelist. I just saw that he's in there. Any questions or any other questions I should say about the financial report? And I know we're super early and our guests are not to arrive until about 6:25, but I do see one is already on. If I can have liberty, if you all don't mind, I would like to just move up. I just need a motion to really talk about really quickly. And it literally will take us until about 6:25 to talk about our unfinished business items, because they're one of the items we do need to vote on. Can I just have a motion so that we can make that change?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Awesome. Motion carries. So let me talk about this. And the only reason why I'm talking about it really quickly, because I have a 6:30 meeting that I have to leave my house for. So, so the unfinished business. So the commissioner and the community invitations. Let me quickly talk about that. The executive committee met, and one of the things that we were talking about in reference to moving forward with having other commissioners come from the other state agencies, we said as we move forward for the remainder of the year, one of the things that we wanted to do is invite a commissioner and then invite a community person. And so when you think about, we have 3 community people that will be on today, but we really want to get away from having commissioner heaviness, if that makes sense, and really inviting some of our African heritage representatives to come and have an opportunity to present to us what they're doing in the community, how it could potentially align with some of the commissioners that we may have. So begin to think about who would make sense to kind of align like practices together. I know for next month, one of the things that we had talked about a while back is inviting back Commissioner Harrington and Commissioner Schnell to give us kind of an update. So if you recall, they came early on, right around the time when we had the various murders, but then we also had the bills that were on the table and some of the things that have been, changed with the post board. So we'll hear about that, in a few minutes here. But I just wanted to throw that item out there, that's kind of what we're, looking at. And that's kind of what the executive team said, that would be a good idea for us to kind of align, commissioners and community, so that we would have at least 2 presenters per meeting. One would be a commissioner, one would be a community organization. So that gives them an opportunity to present to us and then elevate some of the work that they're doing around our African heritage community. So I wanted to throw that out there really quick. The other thing that any questions before I move on? Because I know I talk fast. All right. Or comments in reference to that?
I'll just say it's a wonderful idea. I think there are a lot of community organizations doing great work, and they don't get all of the visibility and support that they need. So I just appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you. The other item that we'll call for a vote is we had asked volunteers to help with re-looking at our bylaws. Our bylaws in the past have been reworded, redone according to individuals and not really the heart of the organization. And so we wanted to really look at the bylaws. I worked with Tracy Sigstad, who is the SMART director, who we contract services for. And I really wanted to get her take on, one, what are the other ethnic councils doing? Because we have to be careful of us getting too much into the weeds and really staying kind of that 10,000 foot level, but yet still having that oversight. And so her and I worked together on rewording some language. We brought this back to the executive council, so we want to bring it to you. The key changes that we are going to actually present to make, and then we need to vote on it. So if you all can pull that up, Theo or Linda, if you can pull up those changes. And this will help as we go forward when we talk about taking time out of our meetings to vote on contracts, to, expend time on, I would say, operational pieces versus, really digging into the weeds of how do we help our African heritage community and what are some things that we need to be digging in and how do we allow for community to hear what's going on. So one of the things that was, oh, yep. And then you just have to enlarge it, please. And hopefully you all had a chance to review it. But what I will just cover, can you enlarge it, plus sign? There we go. So one of the things that that we want to change is at the beginning, we still had it as draft bylaws for the council. So we had approved it, but we never took the draft off. So that will have to change. The other recommendation was to remove the language that says requires Office of the Attorney General review. That is not correct. It is not required that we have our AG review our bylaws. It's a great practice, but it's not required. And so she recommended that we remove that language. But again, best practice for us to have them review it, absolutely. If you scroll down, I believe it's the second page, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. So the other thing that we talked about is we have I would say the last 2 fiscal years, we have been known to have an overage of funds. And the reason why we've had an overage of funds is due to staffing changes. So then you end up with salary savings. And so again, like we have an overage this fiscal year due to staffing changes. The previous fiscal year, same thing, due to staffing changes. So what we had done in relation to the bylaws is when we noticed this, we put a line in there about sponsorships. Tracy said, absolutely remove that. The reason why is a sponsorship is the same as a contract. And so we want to be able to give the autonomy back to the executive director and staff to make pertinent decisions that make sense for the advertisement and marketing for the organization, and not necessarily having us dig into the weeds every, like I said, every single meeting. We shouldn't be having to talk about contracts and other stuff. But she said, that's not a practice, for us to have that sponsorship aspect. We had a big discussion about contracts. The piece about contracts is this: there's an annual plan memo that is presented at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we will see this in 2 months. We will see this at our first meeting in January, because the fiscal year for the state, if you're not aware, is July 1 to June 30th. And so our first meeting in July, Linda and her team will present what's called an annual plan memo. In that memo, that if we approve that, which is the language that she recommended, that is giving the executive director the authority to enter into these types of contracts up to 5,000. Anything over 5,000 would call for them to bring it to the council, and then we would have to approve it from there. But what this does, if you notice, we had to have a special call meeting for contracts that were not exceeding 5,000 just to get the approval. It also alleviates if they want to enter into an agreement with someone, and by the time they want to enter into the agreement and then there's a delay in time for when we meet, it also alleviates that and really gives the authority back to the organization. And this is kind of a common practice that the other ethnic councils are also following, is to approve an annual plan memo. And then once we approve that, if there are contracts that they want to enter into agreement with that exceed 5,000, then yes, those would still have to be approved by the majority of the members of the council, which is basically at our full council meeting. And then it's executed by myself and the executive director. Those are honestly the 3 changes that we wanted to make. Everything else is pretty standard language, but any questions or comments, you can stop sharing just so we can see everybody. But any questions or comments in reference to the changes that we want to make? Oh, well, that was easy. So if I can have a motion to approve the necessary changes for the bylaws, and then this will go into effect, after today's meeting.
Madam Chair, this is Jude. I have a comment. I'm okay with the changes as outlined, but my comment is on the bylaw itself. So on section 1, section 2, Article 2, section 2.1, so the duties of council. So here it is stated that the duties of the council as provided under the Minnesota statutes, blah, blah, blah. The council must work for the implementation of economic, social, legal, and political equality for the African heritage community.
Yep.
So this is the statute. And then I think the way we run the council, I'm not seeing the implementation of this very visible in the council as we have it here. So maybe because we just have it as our statement here, and there's nothing else said about it. Maybe it's not emphasized enough, or maybe we are not maybe paying attention to this, because implementation is execution of economic, social, all these areas that affect our people. So how are we doing it? Is it the language here? Do we need to amplify this more on the bylaws? Or is this just something we have to be aware that actually we have to be part of the implementation, not just the part which we are very active and we are pursuing, but also in terms of implementation, because that gives us a lot of room to improve the well-being of our people. Because he mentioned this economic, social, legal, and political equality, which is a big, big statement.
Well, and if you also, and that's why the statute is actually listed there as well, because it's also something that's also enacted from the staff, from the ED and the team. You know, if you look at our role and what our duties are, yes, it is all of that. But as far as actually enacting that, that's where, again, I'll put this back and I keep saying it, our direct connections, according to your African heritage, is our duty and responsibility to bring that to the council, to elevate that as well. But that is also, when we're meeting with the governor, when we're meeting with other constituents, that's how that's elevated.
Okay, the second part is the liaison, which is section 2.3. So it says the council shall serve as a liaison between state government and organizations that serve the constituencies of the council.
And that we do.
Okay, so just the way we amplify that, because the question, I know in the past we struggle with our community relationship, what we do and how we express it. There's a tremendous improvement, but I would like us to, do more in this area, because it's not only what we do, but also how we express it and how we live it, that the community can see the actual work we are doing in terms of this relationship with organizations in our. And a
lot of that too, Jude, is if you look at how we're marketing, you can stop sharing. If you look at the marketing aspect of it as well, so think about our annual report. You can look from years past and look at the annual report today, night and day. And it really proves what we have done, how we have done it, who we've connected to, and it's ongoing. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just, oh, we did this fiscal year. It's a one and done. It's ongoing, having those conversations with various constituents, whether it's within the West African, East African, or African American community, and then looking at the areas that we know where the disparate entities are. We don't need to relive where the disparities are. It's a matter of how do we make sure that we are a liaison and bringing in, so thinking about last month, bringing in our Black legislators and hearing from all over, not just the metropolitan area, what they're doing and how we can elevate from there as well.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. I mean, for the changes, I support the changes, especially the funding. So if it's a small amount of money, that should not be occupying our time, because we have limited time. And
right.
That our ED and then the chair, whoever is the chair, next time I will be able to live up to our expectations. So I support the change. Thank you.
So Jude, are you putting a motion on the table?
Yes, I can do that if nobody has another question.
If you can put the motion on the table, that'd be fabulous.
Okay. So this council member Nadi I propose put the motion to adopt the changes in bylaw as revised and put on the floor.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And I'm officially turning the reins over to Wayne because I have another meeting to attend. Thank you all. And we're now moving to the next agenda item, which is our special guest. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and get back to you. Okay, we will continue with the meeting, of course, and it was a good thing to get that behind us because it allowed us to now focus on some of the detailed things. And definitely, I think the point you raised is important, but it also gives us the opportunity to make proposals in how we actually view the things that we're doing, and we have that opportunity. So that was great. Thank you. Now I can't see everybody on my screen, but do we have all our special guests on? So let's see here.
No, it does not look like we do, but we
It does
do
not
have
look like.
Biiftuu. And then I'm going to check my email to see if someone emailed me while you guys.
Oh, we have Biiftuu. Biiftuu
Yes,
Adam.
Biiftuu
Right?
is here.
Yeah, she's here. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think we
And-
can start. We can.
Perfect. Biiftuu, are you presenting with a document or are you just going to be speaking?
I'm just going to be speaking, Director Sloan.
Okay.
Okay, as you all know, council members, I mean, this is pretty much what we've been doing in the past years, inviting partners, and now we are transitioning to have community partners also come and tell us basically what they're doing, how we can impact what they're doing, how we can help in any way. So we want to welcome Biiftuu, and we'll start off with her. And I believe we have 20 minutes. We have maybe 5 minutes for questions. Do about 15 minutes and then 5 minutes of questions. That would be great. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, you got the floor.
Yeah, thank you all, and thank you for inviting me to join you this evening. My name is Biiftuu Adam, and I'm the Victim Family Community Relations Coordinator at the Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. It's a really long way to say that I work at the BCA. I really want to thank the council for having me today. I had the opportunity to speak at your policy summit back in November, so it's nice to be here. I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about my role, which is still somewhat new to the state. And then if council members have questions throughout, I'll try to look at the chat to make sure that I'm addressing those. But really sort of my role at the state was created, unfortunately, out of a gap in services. The BCA sort of has been known more recently for the agency that investigates officer-involved shootings and officer-involved deadly use of force cases. And so it was a culmination of families who'd been impacted in the past, as well as the BCA and the Deadly Force Working Group that had sort of the recommendation that a family liaison be implemented to help folks along the way when these tragic incidents occur, that they are sort of left without many resources in the state and thrown into not only a traumatic situations that has impacted their life forever, right? Truly the most unfortunate news that somebody can ever hear is to hear that their son or loved one has been taken. And now that they have to work with these multiple agencies, right? And what that process is going to look like. And this agency called the BCA, which some folks maybe know about and others don't, is going to do the investigation. And then at what point does that investigation go to the county attorney? So really my job is to help close those gaps, to be the one consistent point of contact for families, as well as other folks who want to learn more and keep them updated. So the reason my title has sort of three parts is the primary role is to work with victims and families. As I've already mentioned, the families that we're primarily working with are families in officer-involved deadly use of force cases. The BCA also investigates a whole host of crime types and victimization. So that means that I also support our special agents in working on trafficking cases, domestic homicides, missing persons cases, crimes against children, and so on. Additionally, when a traumatic incident occurs, right, the whole community is grieving. We know that it's not just the family who's hurt and impacted, but that many families are being traumatized and re-traumatized by seeing these events occur in our community, and that they have questions, right, for us as an agency that's doing the investigation, as well as wanting to know where did this happen, right, whose case is this, who's going to be able to provide us information, and sort of that's where I come in to explain our investigations process, as well as doing trainings and community events for folks to really explain and demystify. I think that we can talk about the criminal justice system sort of day in and day out, but the investigations process itself can be overwhelming, right? So unfortunately, when an incident occurs, sort of when I'm called in, after the killing, the state legislature created some funding for the BCA to have a new unit. Basically what that means is that there are special agents who are working on officer-involved use of deadly force cases now, and that's sort of their main focus. So it's called the Force Investigations Unit. They work on those types of cases, as well as conflict cases, which maybe it's an incident that occurred in another county, and so for whatever reason, they want the state to investigate it. And the other type of case that after this past summer, the BCA is investigating is officer-involved sexual assault cases. So previously, when an officer was, there was a report of sexual assault, it would go to that agency. Now through the legislature, those cases are supposed to be sort of given to the BCA. So those are sort of the three main groups of folks that we're working with. I'll sort of pause there because I know that I talked quickly and said a lot, and see if there are any immediate questions, and if not, I can kind of continue forward.
As you're speaking, Biiftuu, it occurred to me, what if you can talk maybe on what are the challenges, some of the challenges you face in the way you implement your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think the greatest challenge, right, is when there's an investigation underway, it's investigative data. And so there are some details that can be shared, but overwhelmingly most can't. And I think the challenge is like understanding that families are grieving, right? And folks are grieving. Maybe if it's a sexual assault case, it's definitely different than an officer involved case, right? But that folks are grieving in real time, and there's a desire to want to see everything, right? They want to be able to see all the videos and see all the information as they should. I think the challenge is knowing that until this investigation is done, right, as it currently sort of stands by law, that folks are unable to see that. And so there's the confusion of like, who is the BCA versus who's the agency that took that life. And so to sort of give an example, currently there's some legislation around like body cam footage, right, which causes a lot of folks pain and the desire for consistency. And so families have been advocating for consistency, right, that they want to be able to access information. And right now, once the case is, we finished the investigation and the county attorney has decided what the charging decision would be, it's after that point that the family would have access to sort of all the case file, right? And so I think that's the biggest challenge that we're dealing with now. Some parts of that are changing. So there is this move after the summer of 2020 and the legislation that occurred in the special session of now cases, once they are concluded, we'll put them up on our website, right? And so they will be public. But there's even a delay in that because we know these investigations take a lot of time. It's critical that they're done right. They can't be rushed. And so holding that family's grief and that victim's grief and acknowledging that they want to see everything now and they have every sort of right to, right? But also acknowledging that the investigation is underway and we don't want to jeopardize the integrity of that, but that they hold that pain. I think that's the biggest challenge. Thank you for the question.
Thanks.
I see a question. Can you share with us about the Minnesota HEALS proposal in the House Judiciary and Public Safety budget? Why is it important, and why is it important for the African heritage community to support this measure? Thank you for the question. So I think I can give you some background. Sort of when I first came into this role in March, my whole background is working with survivors and victims and folks that are directly impacted. And Minnesota has a lot of resources for general crime victims, but oftentimes families of an officer involved incident are not included, right? And so that was sort of one of the first things that we identified, right? Or where the resources, the access to therapy that the state is paying for, right? Healing services for the family. So the question of Minnesota HEALS lends us to that conversation. Minnesota HEALS is a 3-part budget proposal from the Department of Public Safety. I'll answer this to the best of my ability, and if you have questions, let me know and I'll make sure we follow up. But it's a 3-part. The first part of the program recognizes that after there's an officer involved death, a family is grieving and needs support with the funeral, right? Hosting the funeral and a burial service is an important part in that family's healing process and being able to bury their loved one and honor them in the way that is important to them. And so this program, Minnesota HEALS, one part of it would create funding for families to be able to get that support from the state. Before there was sort of a caveat for what types of victims could, right? This becomes its own sort of separate entity. The other part, right, in burial services as well, is that the family get access to therapy and healing services and what that means to them. Oftentimes when I'm working with folks, there is a point and a desire if they want to seek counseling, right? And that what does trauma services look for them? What kind of a trauma therapist might be the best match for the family? So this fund would be able to allow families to get that direct support from the state, right? To be able to provide them on that healing journey, which we know is for the rest of their life. The other part of Minnesota HEALS is funding for community healing grants. And so what that means is that the state would have funding available for organizations and folks to apply for community healing grants should this pass. Community healing after traumatic events. And so the question is always, well, what classifies a traumatic event? A lot of things, right? What we saw last summer after Mr. Floyd was killed is a traumatic event. The whole community was grieving, right? And so organizations that are supporting folks in the community would be able to apply for these community healing grants. It also includes mass shootings like we saw in Buffalo, right? It would allow funding for folks to be able to apply for that and be able to serve their community. Also included national disasters and other large scale events that cause mass trauma. So that's the second part of Minnesota HEALS. And then the last part is it would create a statewide critical stress management system for first responders. So there's a lot of different programs in the metro and other parts like peer support for first responders. This would create sort of one centralized place that would provide wellness for officers, hopefully being able to provide them proactive services to keep them well as they are serving in our communities. The other questions that it's in so that it has been funded in the House. It's currently in conference committee, and there are sort of discussions every day on this. It's also in the governor's proposal, Minnesota HEALS, as well as the Department of Public Safety. Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if there are other questions. I think sorry, go ahead.
I do have one question. Biiftuu, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just wondering, the services that you mentioned the state provides, are those services community-based? Are they culturally centered as you think about, the long-term support that families need around grief? It is so important that, those services live in the community in terms of access, in terms of the cultural relevance, and all of those pieces. So if you could just say a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that question. So right now, unfortunately, the state does not provide these services. If Minnesota HEALS should be funded, then we would. And to the question of like these services having to live in community, they have to, right? The family and the victim and the folks who are being directly impacted have to choose what does the service provider look like to them. Is there a particular healer in their community or a faith leader that they have been going to that's been providing them counsel, right? That is who like we would as a state fund through sort of this programming, right? There are certain things that I think in terms of like how they bill, right? Like there are some traditional healers that maybe the billing is not through this standard way. And so how can we work with them, right, to make sure that they're setting them up? It should be that the family and the victims themselves are selecting what type of places they want to go for healing, but it's certainly our responsibility to provide them resources, right? And so knowing where they live and their background, what are the types of things that they're interested in, but ultimately we wouldn't say you have to go seek therapy at this particular provider, right? That you seek it where it is, you would let us know and send the bill. There is a comparable program called Minnesota Crime Victim Reparations. And so how that works is if I'm somebody who's been seeing a therapist for a number of years and I've submitted a claim with this program, I send them the bill and then they provide reimbursement. And so I would select where I go. That's a really great question and definitely a point to highlight that it has to be resources that are in that person's community, right, that resonate for them. We don't get to decide what healing looks like for them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And families having the option to choose for themselves is so important. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I probably have 7 more minutes. I don't know. But I can talk just a little bit more sort of around how the BCA also is serving statewide, and then happy to close for folks. I think there are other maybe special guests coming on. I think as I mentioned earlier, the BCA does serve statewide, and so my position is new to the state. I've been here over a year now, but I do work with folks who are experiencing various types of victimization, and so that means that myself and our special agents are moving around the state as necessary. We do assist in various types of crime, and so what'll happen is an agency will call the BCA and ask for us to assist. Or in the case of an officer-involved use of deadly force case, they're often calling, asking us to take on the case, right? We're not partnering with folks on that case. It is us that's doing that investigation. The other sort of thing that is interesting for folks, and I know that I think Chair Mohammed from the Community Advisory Council to the Post Board might be speaking later today or to you all soon, is that we're at the BCA are also sort of sitting on that Community Advisory Council. I was created out of the legislation last summer, and so we've seen a number of folks in the community come and give their testimony and efforts that they want that body to support and observe. And I just offer that for folks here on this council and other folks that may be watching or engaged with CMAH, that if there are initiatives you're working on or issues, concerns you want to elevate, or responses you're looking for, please feel free to contact me. A lot of the work that I do is meeting with young folks or community groups and addressing their concerns, and also like demystifying what is our role, right? How can they engage with us? And that all feedback is welcome, because we have to be here to serve all communities, right? And that means that like continuous feedback is always appreciated so that we can do better by folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Biiftuu. Are there any other questions? Council members? If not, thank you so much for being here today. I think that was very good. Learning to know what you do and the impact it's having, given the fact that it's pretty new. I know the challenges, as enormous as it can get, you know, but I think there are still opportunities in how your work can impact everybody who are involved. So thank you so much, Biiftuu.
Thank you all.
Yep. Okay, so we have also, and Linda, help me please, because again, I can't see all these on my screen here.
Yeah.
Do we have Kelly or Nick?
It doesn't look like either one of them have joined us. I know that, you know, Kelly, I think she's a police chief as well. So, I mean, you know, so she could be involved in some stuff.
Okay.
But yes, I am not seeing them, and I have not received an email from them saying that they would not be here. They were invited, and something must have just come up.
Okay. All right. All right. You still have to move on anyway. So, were there any public comments? Anybody sign up to have comments from the public? Did we?
Not that I am aware of.
No. Okay. Well, great. It looks like this meeting is gonna be the shortest we've ever had. But
Right.
of course, we already talked about, you know, what Chair Hughes mentioned in the bylaws. We got that passed. So we will just go to Linda with the update.
Okay, perfect. Okay, in terms of staff updates, I believe that most of you know already that Amber has been tapped by the governor's office. So she will be out of our office for the next couple of months, and hopefully it's just a couple of months. There could be a possibility, though, that if they go to special session, that could possibly be extended. So she is working with the policy team and working primarily with police reform, which actually fits with the work that we do and have been doing. And I'm just trying to keep an eye on my phone just in case one of the presenters is calling me. I heard it buzzing.
Yeah.
But so Amber is out, and that means that we're just picking up different responsibilities. So the African immigrant panels will go back under me. And so if you signed up to participate in that, I'm trying to schedule a meeting. So if you see an email, just please respond. And so we are hiring an urban scholar intern. So that'll happen in the summer. And we have somebody, his name is Olufemi Okendumila, and I probably just, you know, did not pronounce that right, but Femi will be joining us at the end of May. And initially he would have been working with Amber as part of the outreach group, but because she's not here, he's going to be working some with me on those immigrant panels, as well as a lot with Theo, because in the legislative space, there's outreach as well. He's definitely a top-notch student and has a very strong background. So, and if any of you are interested in his resume, I'd be happy to share that as long as I get his permission. But he'll be starting at the end of May. We are fortunate, blessed to have with us, Jasmine still with us. She's on the line, on the call now, and she will be with us throughout until June 30th when the fiscal year ends. So we were able to get her extended. So we are just doing our thing in terms of staffing is the best that we can. So that's the staffing update, and I'll just move directly into my executive director report. So we've just been doing a lot of meetings, again, with legislators during the trial. Right at the end, I had a call with the governor just to talk about what we were seeing out in the community. I partnered a lot with Amber, so we were going out. Amber was, man, she was out there. Everywhere something was happening, there was Amber. So she dragged me to some of those things as well. We also attended the Posse Caucus press conference and some additional activities. Spending a lot of time on what's happening at the end of this biennium. So there's a lot of budget items and administrative items that need to happen. And so working with Shakira on those things, have spent a lot of time with Theo, and he'll talk a lot about what's happening in the policing space. So just being available to either testify or write letters. So you should have gotten copies of some letters that have come out of our office. We're trying to make sure that we are speaking on the major issues that are affecting our community. I've scheduled some legislative training, so that was confirmed. We are having legislative training on Saturday, June 26th, and you'll get more information on this from 9 to 12. And we felt that that was important because we want to get the council board members engaged in the work, more in the work of what we're doing from a legislative perspective. So we want you guys to be familiar with, again, how do I connect with the legislators? What do I say? How do I testify? So all of those things that frankly, I didn't know how to do before I started this job, but you pick things up as you move forward. We are also looking at doing some media training. One of the things that came up is that we need to be able to speak with one voice. If you are called to speak in front of the media, so for example, at the Posse Caucus press conference, one of the senators asked me, did I want to speak? I did not feel comfortable at that time because I haven't had a lot of media training, and I just wasn't prepared, whereas, you know, there were some community members who spoke a little bit later, but they speak all the time. So they had their points, and then the legislators, they actually had theirs written down, and some of them as well. And so I just felt that since you guys are representing various communities, so for example, Brooklyn Center, Councilmember Daniels might be called to speak, or Nandi might be called to speak. So we need to be able to speak with one voice where we have our talking points, and we're able to represent the council well. So that's on the agenda. Strategic planning. If you have not been contacted yet, you will be contacted by DeYoung Consulting. It's the same group that did some of the visioning work and the strategic plan from last year. And it's going to be around engagement. Again, we're going to be spending a lot of time on why people joined the board, why they are staying for the people who have second terms, and where they want to be. What do you want to do? You know, most people don't show up just because they want to say I'm on a board. They want, and I'm sure after talking with pretty much everybody, there's work to be done and you guys want to accomplish something. So DeYoung will be interviewing you so we can get at that. And from there, we are going to develop a strategy, an engagement strategy, so we can get you guys in the mix of the work. So if healthcare is your thing, then we want to make sure that you're engaged in some of the COVID activities. So I think that that's an important piece that is has been worked on, but needs a lot more work in that space. Marketing, Chair Hughes referenced the fact that I would love to do kind of a end of the year kind of wrap up marketing piece, and I don't know quite yet, but since we have available funds to do something, to do a piece that can be aired on the radio as well as a print piece, and we can put this in the African immigrant papers and radio and the African American papers and radio, just so that, again, to Council Member Nandi's comment, are we telling our story? We need people to know what's being done and then know how they can mobilize and help us with our work. So I'm looking at that. So I did reconnect with Nika Creative, and unfortunately, because of the way the contracts go, we only have about $6,000 that we can spend with them because there is a cap. And so I spoke with them about putting together some marketing materials, and they are going to come up with an ad as well as come up with radio for us to do by the end of the year, and then we will do the media buys for that. But I need permission from the council in order to move forward with that. I don't have the contract as of yet because we've just recently had the conversations. Initially, we were going to try to do some full branding, but after having, well, one, the conversation about their cap, and then two, just how much it costs to do strategy work, we thought that this would be the low-hanging fruit. So I would like permission from the council, for the council to vote on us being able to engage Nika Creative for, I think it's like $5,995, which is what we have left, in the work of developing an ad a print ad as well as developing radio copy. And then we would go out, since we do still have some additional dollars, and do the media buy. So I would like permission from the council in order to do that.
Okay, that's a proposal you're making today?
That is a proposal. I would like for you guys, right, for the council to give me the authorization to engage into an agreement with Nika Creative for the $5,995, and I will follow up with the contract immediately. Probably even tomorrow. I will send that to you, but it'll be the standard contract that we use for everything. But what it will cover is they will provide us with an ad spot for print and a radio script for radio, and then we will do the media buys separately on the stations that are most relevant to our particular constituents.
Okay, I see what you mean. Well, as much as it sounds pretty good, and that's something I personally support in terms of all of the points you listed, particularly marketing, because I think it's important to get what we do out there and how we get it out there is important. Which medium do we use? But as far as the contract, since we haven't really changed anything, talk about timeline. Is that something you can put down on paper or something like that, so we be able to see that before we make that decision?
Yeah, here's
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that the challenge is if we want to do it because of the fiscal year ending June 30th, we basically have to move on it today. Otherwise, I don't think that it could happen because you guys have the 3-day or 4-day for an open meeting where you have to, I think, provide 3 days notice or 4 days notice or something, and then people have to show up for that. So you would have to go through that process. So, I mean, it's going to be a standard print ad. They're going to provide a couple of concepts, and I'll run the concepts and the ads by you guys as well. But this is something that we would have to probably vote on today. I mean, clearly we can go back and see if we can do the quick turnaround, but that's up to the council if they want to approach it from that perspective.
Sure. Okay, so council members, are there other questions for Linda before we kind of conclude on what direction do we have? Before anyone come with a question, just one clarification. You talked about the legislative training. Is that part of what Senator Hayden will be doing? Is that, or is it?
Yes, that's
okay.
exactly, yes, that's Senator Hayden's company, and Senator Hayden will be doing the training.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're excited that we're able to get him to do that.
Okay, so council members, and any question? What questions do you have or your thoughts?
This is Tawana. I have a question on the expected service dates. Just for the dollar amount, I know the end of the fiscal year is June 30th.
Right.
And so are we expecting to have the $5,000 worth of services by the end of the fiscal year?
Yes. Everything will have to happen within the fiscal year. Otherwise, we won't be able to do it with this year's money, which is why we're trying to move it forward as quickly as possible.
Right. Did she provide a written proposal?
She provided a document that has kind of a timeline. I mean, this really just came up, honestly speaking, I just found out how much money she had left on her contract. We were trying to think, okay, well, what could we do? Because initially we were going to we wanted a branding strategy, but that's a lot more comprehensive, takes a lot more time, and then also takes a lot more money to do. And their group would not be able to do it in this fiscal year based on the fact that they're at their cap.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My only I guess without seeing what it all entails on paper, it seems, at least for me, it seems a little high for services that she would complete by the end of the fiscal year. But again, that's without me seeing. I'm a visual numbers person. Just
Yeah,
by
right.
nature.
Yeah.
But I do agree that the services themselves would be a benefit to the council. It just seems that compared to what she's been charged and the council has been charged for services similar in the past, it just seems a little high.
Well, I can tell you that I don't believe that it is, not for a print ad and then also for a radio script as well. And I think even for the annual report, she really, I think, gave us a discount for the amount of time that they spent on that annual report. They could have easily probably charged more for that. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Yeah, just quick. Sorry. So quick question. So can you just briefly? So the services are for what? You said a print ad. And then,
yes, and the development of radio script.
And then
yes.
What? She's creating a copy. She's creating all the copy and stuff.
Yes. And
Script.
they will.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I support it. You know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I own a small business, so I think a lot of times we underprice ourselves, and then in our community, especially, we underprice ourselves. So I don't see an issue with it. One of the quickest ways when we talk about creating wealth, we always gloss over this when we have the opportunity to do it through a mechanism like this. So, you know, I think it makes sense. I think we should get in the habit of doing it. More stuff like this, in my opinion. So other communities are doing it with much less questions. I'll say that. So I support it.
Yeah. And
Right.
in addition, so not only will it be Nika Creative making a few dollars, it'll also be us supporting some of our local media as well. So.
Right.
You know, and we have the money to spend, that must be spent, but, you know, that's a decision that the council will have to weigh.
Right. Any other thoughts?
No, I just want to clarify, just to go back to why I was raising questions. It wasn't because I felt like we should be shortchanging her. I think I've said this before, but I come from admin. So I come from the encumbering portion of this. And I just know the questions that are going to be raised on their end. So I do it more so for us to have the dialogue. If someone was to raise it up and they compare it to a previous contract and say, well, why are we paying this person this much and we paid them, let's say $1,000 for something less. It's more for us to be clear. Not because I'm trying to say that she deserves less. I just know the actual process behind everything. Yeah,
right.
Just to clarify for everyone, that's usually where I'm coming from if I'm raising questions on what's coming from the contract and the proposals and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just quickly, I completely understand. I will say that as board, I think we should be able to put value on services, and historically we get questions other folks don't get, and I don't have an issue with it. I'm just gonna have the same response I had on this meeting. I think the value is there, and I'm completely comfortable with it. So, they can ask whatever questions they would like, whatever process they have. Makes sense to me.
Okay, great. But here's the thing. Here's where I come from, and definitely I don't oppose doing something like that. Like I said, that's definitely necessary because we talked about this before. but we have a process. So I'm leery about making that decision now, just because in the past, yes, I mean, if it's something that just came about, just recently, and you haven't had time to really put it down to what it's going to look like, I think we should do that. The council definitely, at one point, I mean, before, even though we adopt our bylaws now, at one point we had to do an emergency meeting to make sure we get that contract signed. And because it's something that has to be done before the fiscal year ends, it's important that we get it done as soon as possible. But because, I guess, as Linda, you said, just came about, I think we still need to have that spell out in what it looks like. And then we can get the council back together to make that decision within, 3 days or so. That shouldn't. I don't see where it's going to impact the work and when it's going to start, because we don't have that yet. So if that's something you can do tomorrow, the day after or so, and I think it will be good to call the council back and just show it, present it or send it by email, and we can do a vote and pass it. That should be the process. Because we know going forward, of course, then we wouldn't be even talking about this, because you have that flexibility to do something like this without
For
the council.
5,000.
Yeah, but until we get to that point, I think we should keep within that process. Let's have it clear. Let's have the contract, and then we get back together and make that decision and move forward with that.
Okay.
What's the timeline again, Linda? Like, how soon does this have to? What's the last day?
Well, they'll need to start on the 17th in order to get it ready, get everything done by the 3rd week in June. So we'd be talking about airing like the last week in June, and the print going in whatever newspapers the last week of June. So it is really a tight timeline, because there's a little bit of feedback, a few days of feedback built into that. So it is tight, and I appreciate you, Vice Chair Doe. The only thing is, just looking at those contracts, they're basically the same. There's just maybe one line that says what they're providing. But your call on how you want to proceed, clearly.
Well, sorry, second question, Mr. Chair. I have a few more questions. So if we're going to have a special meeting, which personally I don't know that it's necessary, but if we're going to have a second meeting, what are the guidelines around that? Isn't there a certain number of days that people need to be given advance, or is it something that we can do? So 3 days?
Yeah, just 3 days.
Okay.
So we're still within the time frame that we can get this done, because if it's just changing a line on a contract, that shouldn't be anything difficult to get that out by tomorrow. And then we can get this done, for them to meet the timeline that they've set.
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. So we got 3 days. So that would mean we'd have to do it either Friday or Monday? Or do people meet on the weekend? Because you're saying the 17th. So, I just want to walk through the logistics of it. Because the work needs to get done, and then the small business needs to get paid, right? So, and if we don't do it, small business get paid, work doesn't get done. So I'm just trying to figure out, is that possible for us to get it in 3 days, considering 3 days from now is the 14th, which is a Friday, or Monday, the 17th. And then on the 17th, if we did it, would that be enough time to get the turnaround and get everything in, or would we miss something?
So that's the question to me. I mean, I personally think
to you or
get it
to
done.
Linda?
Yeah, well, Linda can comment. I think we can get it done. We've done it before in the past. I'm just saying that we haven't transitioned into having that kind of flexibility. I'm just leery that, if information that comes out that haven't been presented or just verbally presented without having seen, what it looks like on paper. I think we should continue that process until we get that changed. And with the timing of it, I don't think it's going to hurt if we did that because it's important, and I don't hear anybody disagreeing with the work itself. It's just about, yes, we need to get it done, even if it means, having a conversation with them to make sure that they understand. I mean, we're not going to. I mean, I would think we're not saying no to them having a contract, but we have a process, and I think we should follow that process. By Friday, and we speak to Chair Hughes because she probably will be back by then. By Friday, we can call a quick meeting or just for a vote. I think we did it in the past. So again, I don't think it hurts it hurts the contract, but we have to make sure we have that clear in terms of what we're doing. That makes sense?
Mr. Chair, I have a question regarding the policy and the logistics behind it. So from what you're saying for this particular contract, is it because it's oral, it's not written down, or is it because of other policies? Is there any particular policy against us adopting this today? Yeah, if we do it today, because what to be done, the outcome is clear. What the contract is all about is clear. So I think it's only in terms of being written down on a paper. Is that the only issue, or is it something else?
Yeah, that's pretty much the issue, because that's the policy we followed in the past when contracts are being contract being approved. That's the policy we follow. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why, in fact, we changed the language in the bylaws to make sure we don't have to do these kind of things. But until we get to that point, which of course begins in the next fiscal year, I don't think it's going to hurt us to follow the process as it is, rather than making a decision today.
Mhm.
That's fine too, but I don't think we should.
Okay, so the council is making the decision, and then this is money apart from the value is bringing to the council. It's money that if we for any reason miss it, the money will go back to the state. So I remember the struggle we had last 2 years, trying to dish money out to the community, and then it was a big struggle, which we finally succeeded in doing. But that money would have gone back to the state, and I know some of us put serious effort to make sure that the money went to the community. In this case, so the policy, I don't really understand the policy, but I know it's more of documentation or having it on paper. But if council can vote to, based on the circumstance, this money is going, this program, this project is within, and we're trying to push it through the fiscal year, and it has value. We're not throwing away the money. So we can vote to take responsibility for that. And we can also vote to get a contract going because of the timeline. But this is just my view. But if the body is not comfortable with that, we can come back again to do the meeting. But whatever line that is going to be changed, and the paper we have, I think we would get exactly what we're going to get if we do it today. So I'm just looking at what the council can do, the waivers we have, and what we cannot do in terms of policy.
Okay, sounds good. Any other thoughts? I think I'm hearing different views, so we can put it to a vote. That's what needs to happen. We can do that. But, as far as what we practice and what I believe we should move forward with, I don't think it's going to hurt us. I don't think we're going to circumvent them getting the contract because of the timing of it. But certainly we can put it to a vote. Is there any other council members who want to speak towards this? Councilmember Dukes, any thoughts? Councilmember, who else do we got?
The only thought that I have is that, I agree that we can move forward with a vote tonight on the basis that I think recently we had a situation where we were making a donation, and I think it was a similar amount, and we didn't have as much discussion. I think we left it to the discretion of our ED. And so I, kind of feel the same way in this case where, I appreciate the question about the amount, but I think if we, all agree that the amount is sufficient, that, you know, the context for what we are trying to, I think we have enough information and enough context for the monies being spent to move forward with a vote. So that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, sounds good. Any other thoughts? If not, then definitely we can I'll open this to a motion. All right, we can entertain a motion and we can put it to a vote.
So what are we voting for?
So I mean, when we talk about as far as the motion, the ED is presenting the opportunity to have a contract signed with what's the name of the group again?
It's Nika Creative. Nika.
Nika Creative, and you can spell it up so the language is clear in terms of what the motion sounds like and the amount that the amount of the contract. Can you help us as far as what exactly that is? Are you trying to pull something up?
Oh, sorry. I thought I sent, did you not get the Nika Creative 5995?
Oh, unfortunately, I cannot see.
Oh, because you're on the
anything
phone.
here, so,
I forgot about that.
yeah, so if somebody, I mean, any council member, are you looking at the language and see what it is, and the floor is open, I entertain a motion, definitely. And then we'll have that, take a vote on it. So anybody else can kind of read out what it is? Councilmember Jude, can you see it?
Can we put it on the screen, maybe?
Yeah, that's an option.
Okay, I'm not sure how to exactly do that, but I can say what it is. I'm asking for authorization to enter into an agreement with NECA Creative for $5,995, and they will deliver to us a print ad and radio script.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
So
I haven't heard that. I mean, you want to put it into a motion, please?
yeah, I can do that. Let me see if I can repeat, test my memory. Councilmember Nadi, I moved the motion for the ED to enter into a contract with NECA Creative to create for us print and electronic media script.
Okay, in the amount of $5,000.
At the amount of $5,995.
Okay.
Second.
So we got it. We got the motion. We got the second. All in favor, make it known by saying yay.
Aye.
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 Oppose. Abstain. I will abstain from this one. But it sounds like.
This is Tawana. I will
motion.
abstain as well. Sorry. I thought I hit mute.
Oh, okay. So we got 2 abstentions. And how many for? Linda, you
Aye.
have a tally. Did you tally? I,
Oh.
Councilmember Duke, I, Councilmember Jude, and I, Councilmember Holland.
Winston.
Winston, brother. Okay. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
So it looks
sorry.
like right.
So we only
so the
had
vote
2
is-
abstentions and
Yeah.
everybody else said yes, right? Is
Yes,
that correct?
okay, great.
Okay.
So the vote is carried. So any discussion, any other discussion on that? Any other thoughts? All right, that means it's carried. So Linda, yep, it means you can proceed,
Perfect.
okay? With
Thank
the
you for your
contract.
vote of confidence. And I will try to get the contract tomorrow. Shakira was off today, so I wasn't able to get that done. But I should be able to get a contract fairly quickly. So
And
that
you will
guys
share
can-
that.
And I will share it with you immediately.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Do we have legislative update? Are we gonna proceed with that?
Oh,
as well?
I'm not finished.
Oh, great.
I
Oh,
still
you-
have more with the ED's report. I'll be quick. Okay, just so you guys know too, this May, they will be appointing the 2 people to the council. So we have been asked about that, myself, as well as the chair has been involved in that. Biiftuu is up for consideration, and we definitely support her candidacy. The decision, though, rests with the governor, but we will know sometime this May, closer to like mid-May, as to who our 2 new council members will be. Had a conversation with Al McFarland. I think I mentioned before that we were going to be working with him to do some radio programming in terms of bringing on a legislator, bringing on someone from the council, and perhaps bringing a community member to discuss the various issues that are happening within the community. So that is definitely a go. So Theo and I met with him, and we're just going to iron out the details. So we will be tapping into you guys, trying to figure out, okay, where's the space where you feel comfortable having a discussion? And we're doing that for a couple of reasons. 1, we want to highlight the legislators, and 2, we want to highlight the council members in the council. And 3, we want to have engaging discussions about the issues so that we can bring that information back to further our work. And I think that might be it for me. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Vice Chair Dunn.
Yes, and so Theo next, right? Theo, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're up next. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. All right. So the update. I think the main message for my report today is that we're near the end of we're basically in the last leg of the legislative session, but the legislative body has a lot of work to do still. Like there's a lot of work left to do. The session will adjourn May 17th. And the Senate negotiations for budget bills, and it feels as if they will need additional time past May 17th to come to an agreement on the state budget. And the hard deadline is June 30th, I think, the end of June, right? So we are tracking. I mean, so the legislative staff. I mean, Jasmine is on this call as well. She's a very important partner for us all throughout my time so far at the council. We were tracking funding and policy provisions in the education, housing, health and human services budget bills. For this update, I will focus on our work related to economic policy and police accountability in April. So on the economic policy front, the jobs bill, CMAH provided letters and oral testimony in support of key provisions in the House Workforce and Development Omnibus Bill. We also to say a little bit about that bill, it has some really good, innovative measures in there, led by Chair Noor, that really is trying to focus on investments in BIPOC communities. So we definitely, we're definitely advocating for the passage of those provisions in the jobs bill. We have partnered with the Latino Affairs Council on a joint letter for provisions in the bill, and we did, as it's going through the conference committee negotiations process. We sent a letter and we supported oral testimony in that process. I think the key thing here is that the House and the Senate have to come up with shared targets for the conference committees. So Senate leadership, House leadership have to agree on what the budget targets are for the actual conference committees. And I think after that, we will get some more movement in the process. But right now, things are sort of, for the most part, at a standstill regarding budget negotiations on that bill and on other bills. I definitely, want to have I think that the key thing that our council, that for me anyway, in my work here, that I'm looking forward to is more engagement with council members on some of these policy priority areas. So I really, I look forward to more conversations with each of you on that front, and with the broader networks that you guys lead and that you belong to in the community on some of these policy areas that you might have keen interest in. So that's the economic policy. We also have, I think this past week, we sent out an action alert for more community engagement on the jobs bill. And I think that was shared with, I'm not sure if that has been shared with the council members, but it should be on our website. It's on our social media pages. And it's to just get community members, our community organizations and individuals to reach out to the conference committee members. And we've identified some of the key measures that we think are impactful for the African heritage community, and just to express your support for those measures, and to push for the conferees to stand behind those measures and push them through the process. On the human rights and police accountability front, so I want to, in this one, I want to just break it down into two parts for us. We have the work that we've been doing directly with the legislative body on legislative policy and the actual lawmaking. And then we have the work we've been doing on the administrative front with the executive branch, and specifically with the Post Board. And unfortunately, our partners at the Post Board, some of our special guests that we've been working closely with could not make this meeting today, but they've been good partners certainly in March and April. So for the legislative side, really the main thing is that there's an urgent need for our state to take bold action on human rights and police accountability reform before the session ends. We have a critical moment in the history of our state, in the history of the country, and really Minnesota is at the center of world attention on this issue. We delivered a letter to the governor and to state leaders on the need for police accountability reform, really stressing the ways in which our communities in Minnesota, everyday Minnesotans, have been in the lead of really changing the moral compass on the issue of racial disparities in policing, right? Making that matter just an object of global outrage, and how the community is looking for transformative leadership in the state, and looking for our state leaders to really take it as an opportunity, take this moment as an opportunity to improve civil rights protections and police accountability, and really the conduct of police, really improve our policing system for the better, for both our law enforcement and the communities they serve. So we've been engagement on that issue. In April, we submitted written and oral testimony in support of some key human rights provisions in the House Public Safety Omnibus Bill. We also delivered testimony on 3 police accountability measures that were discussed at the House Judiciary Committee after the killing of Dante Wright and the protests that followed. And those measures passed through the House, and now we we are the challenge that the state has is that the Senate has not actually the Senate took what they would see as a principled technical stance that this is a budget year, and so policy bills and policy priorities should wait until next year, and there should be a focus on just the financial appropriation matters of the budget. So there's not really been any hearings on the Senate on police accountability, on police reform, and so it's been a very interesting conference committee process between the House and the Senate on judiciary and public safety, their omnibus bills, their versions of the omnibus. And but it's an interesting engagement, and I think that we're just hoping that at the end there's a consensus and an agreement of the importance of passing some substantive legislation on this issue, because I think it's desperately needed in the community, and really some sincerity on the part of our leadership on this issue, I think, would go a long way for our community and for the communities of color in Minnesota. On the post board, CMAH has led a broad push by community partners and state leaders. Really, this has been a really good success story for reforms at the post board. So the post board is the police and licensing board for the state. It regulates conduct standards and educational training for law enforcement agencies and officers. The key thing that we've been focused on, the sort of initial reform initiative we've been focused on, has to do with the First Amendment. And so the problem is that the state lacks a clear and consistent standard for how police respond to First Amendment public assemblies. And we definitely saw that. We saw the seriousness of this problem in our state after the murder of George Floyd, right? And last summer, the response to public protests, and grief, and just the outrage from the community regarding the issue regarding his murder, the response from police was, in a nutshell, to impede on the First Amendment right of nonviolent protesters, right, of demonstrators, and to just respond with violence in a lot of different ways. And that kind of problem, I mean, it's not unique to Minnesota. And it's certainly a problem that, I mean, is documented both in terms of media and in terms of national media, and also official, actual law enforcement, federally and statewide, in terms of the challenges that law enforcement departments have faced across the country in their response and to the sort of new era, this new generation of the civil rights movement. And so that's so we focused on this issue with some really good community partners since February, engaged the post board on this matter, and really led a direct advocacy for the adoption of a First Amendment, a minimum First Amendment policy standard at the post board. We worked with various community partners. We worked with the post board's community council, and in the end, we actually received support from the governor and from the Speaker of the House for the proposal that we presented at the post board. And I'm happy to report that that First Amendment measure was passed unanimously at the post board's April 22nd meeting. And so that's just a really big win for our council. And there's still work to be done regarding other types of reforms that we can really work with community, in pushing, whether at the post board or in other sort of administrative and legislative areas. So that's the main of my report. I will definitely yield here for the questions or more information.
Thank you, Theo. Great. A lot of work you guys put into that to get that amendment passed. What questions do you have, council members? Any questions to Theo? Theo, you talked about engaging council members in terms of their priorities, so to speak. Do you have a timeline to that? Are you looking at a specific period to start that process? Just given the fact that, scheduling will be challenging.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I definitely want to focus on as we're closing on the session. And so that's something I'll want to get back to you guys about, a specific sort of work plan on that. And I will be in discussion with Linda about it as well. We've talked about setting up work groups, different sorts of models and that we can use to really, improve our effectiveness, let's say, in how we're engaged in legislative development and advocacy. So, I mean, I think that's something that I would definitely look forward to being more engaged with the council members on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Vice Chair, can I?
Go ahead. Yes.
I was going to jump in on that question too.
Yes. Go ahead.
Shakira sent out a survey to the council members. It's probably been a couple of weeks ago, but that survey was designed to garner your interest in specific areas for that purpose as well, because we want to know what are you interested in, where you're kind of working right now, what you want to get involved in, so that we can start developing those work groups, as Theo mentioned, and tap into you guys. I think that you guys are a phenomenal resource, and so we want to make sure that the council is taking full advantage of that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. We got that. Did I hear somebody who wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I had a question / comment. So,
Okay.
I know one of the things that's coming down the pipeline that's kind of going to change the face of things when it comes to small businesses is the American Rescue Plan. So the funding is pretty much hitting, and I tend to, for my regular gig, I work with a number of community development financial organizations or funding organizations, whatever, CDFIs. And I think one of the concerns with them is that for the ones that serve Black immigrant, people of color communities, is making sure that as that funding comes down the pipeline, a good amount of that goes to some of the businesses that need it most, which are going to be BIPOC businesses who are often, we saw this with the PPP funding, right? We've seen it with other programs in the past. They're often shut out of these programs, or they don't have the connection. So, I would be interested in, and I don't need an answer today, but in terms of how you're going to be involved with that, because it's going to actually change the calculus of what's going to happen in this session as they look at all of those dollars that are going to flow in, and it's a huge amount of money. So just, I don't know if we talk, I'm not sure about procedure around here, but it would be nice to kind of know what the game plan is from the council's perspective, because they are, I advocated for some, but these businesses will need someone to advocate for them at the Capitol as this funding flows. It's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity in some ways. So I don't necessarily want that funding to pass over these communities, especially, the African heritage community, because we know that our businesses are really, really, really struggling, both immigrant, African American, however you want to put it. Black businesses are really struggling, right? So whatever game plan you have, however I can assist with that, whatever information I can provide, let me know, because it's going to be, I was talking to Representative Nora about it earlier today. It's going to be extremely important that there's allies that are just informing think the House probably gets it, but more folks in the Senate, helping them to understand that this can help with some of that. When you talk about those wealth gaps, right? The quickest way to remove that wealth gap, they say, is folks who start businesses, right? So this is an opportunity 10 years down the road to say, well, we were able to get this funding to these specific communities. We've chipped away at that wealth gap because we were able to help grow these businesses out of the pandemic/unrest versus them kind of crawling out of it, right? So it's my 2 cents, and I guess my kind of a question. So.
Right. No, that's I appreciate that very much. I think that's something that I would like to follow up with you, Council Member Winston. I think, yeah, the Chair Noor certainly, you know, his work and of his committee has been in the lead regarding, you know, really trying to prioritize investments in the BIPOC community, economic business development investment, and also workforce development investment. And yeah, I think that, yeah, I would like to, you know, have a discussion with you more so we can think through that, because think through the federal dollars, right? And the sort of the rules of engagement with regards to the federal dollars. I think some of the guidelines are being released more and more, but we've been sort of in the dark, at least from my own perspective, in terms of information about, you know, how the dollars will be used, et cetera, et cetera. So I would love to just engage with you on a strategy. I mean, really, actually, to formulate a strategy around this particular issue. I think is a critically important issue. Yeah.
Right.
Happy to discuss.
Yeah, this is Council Member Nadi. I thank you, Council Member Wilson, for bringing up this, and Theo for also the work you do around this. So this is so important for us at the local level. We've been advocating for months, 2 months now, precisely because this money is huge. Last year, when the pandemic started, the state, through deed, gave out $30 million for the start for small businesses, and virtually BIPOC community, especially Black-owned businesses, didn't get. My company was involved. Our group as well, Minnesota African Coalition, was also involved. So throughout the period, the biggest challenge we had in the community was that we needed some technical assistance. It could be because of language, it could be because of racism, it could be so many factors, but without being prepared, like some other mainstream Americans are, so we're far behind. And then at the end of the day, some of the money, like advanced loan program, which were not paid back by, through economic injury disaster loan, that one was just finished within 1 week. So I'm going into detail because this money is huge. So $30 million from deed last year compared to what is coming to the state is $5.565 billion. So half is coming this week and next week to the state, and this money will go down to deed state as well as cities and counties. So the city of St. Paul, the estimated money coming to them is $172 million, and that money through our organization and through the mayor's office, because he brought in leaders from all over the state, BIPOC leaders, to form a group, legislative group. Different organizations belong to that group. I'm not sure if CMAH is there, but different organizations belong to that group, and not only that, we lobby, but to actually take some practical steps to ensure that when it comes to legislative agenda as well as the economic agenda, that we're not left behind. So right now, what we are doing at local level, starting with the city of St. Paul, is to advocate that certain amount of this money will be set aside for technical assistance for BIPOC community, so that our people will be prepared, regardless of what we do. If there isn't much technical assistance for the folks to be ready to participate in this economic rebuilding, we just lose out, as happened throughout last year. So it's very, very important. Right. And I think CMAH should also connect with this group from with the city of St. Paul. We have different leaders from all over the state coming together, different organizations, including the city of St. Paul, Catholic Charity, and so many coalition of homeless organizations, and many other prominent organizations are there. So I think something we need to, Theo, will discuss with you and with ED to see how CMAH will be very, very effective in pushing this through, because the money is going to the state, is going to the county, is going to the cities, and each of them, they have some level of discretion to spend this money, and this is where our people are. So it's something that's really. I thank you for bringing it up, Councilmember Wilson. We really need to step up, because once the money is gone, it's gone, and I think that this must be the most important way to rebuild our community if we are at the table. And that's what we're advocating for. That not only that as people will come to our community to give us piecemeal, but actually our organizations, different businesses and leaders from Black and Brown community should be part of deciding factor, decision makers, how this money will be spent. So thank you for that.
Okay, yeah.
Actually.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jude, for adding to that. But I think it is a great initiative that must be looked into. I'm sure, working with Theo and Linda, we can actually craft something to make sure we are in line with what's happening. How can it impact or help us to help our community in general? Well, we got about 13 minutes to go. Is there any other question? Otherwise, we'll go to any outreach updates, Linda?
Yes, just very briefly. I believe that I mentioned earlier that during the trial, Amber had her feet on the ground all over the place. And so she was definitely representing the council and getting information from the different constituent groups as to how they felt about different things. She wanted me to thank Councilmember Nadi, Councilmember Winston, and then Councilmember Daniels for their input. As she was out there, she was gathering information from them as well, and she saw them in the mix of everything that was happening, especially with the Brooklyn Center event. So that's pretty much it. And then she, has been working on her outreach plan, which now we're going to be facilitating and executing some of those pieces for her.
Right. Well, good. Thank you so much. So we are up on the hour. We did very well, I think. Had a long discussion. Pass a motion to have a contract. Great. I want to thank all of you, council members, for your participation. I think it's important and to be very engaged in the process to make sure that we actually delivering the things that we need to that impacts our community. So thank all of you, Theo and Linda, the staff. We want to just thank you for the work that you're doing. I think we'll continue on this path. This council is we'll be able to turn things around, and I have no doubt that we can do that. With that being said, any other comments or anything else? Otherwise, we'll call this meeting to adjourn. I give you 1 minute. Anybody got anything to say? Okay, so that's it. The meeting is adjourned, and you all have a good night, and we'll see you again in the coming weeks.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.